I killed my father with my bare hands last night. But it wasn't murder, it was mercy. My mother watched from the shadows, her lipstick-smeared glass trembling in her grip, and whispered, "Finally, Peyton, you've become him." And just like that, in the body of the man who'd stolen my life, I felt the first real pulse of freedom since the accident that swapped our souls. It started on the hottest June day in 2023. The kind where New York's asphalt shimmered like a bad acid trip, and the aircon in Columbia's auditorium wheezed like it was on its last breath. I'd busted my ass for 7 years, nights blurring into dawn with textbooks splayed across my crappy Astoria walk-up. Ramen noodles, my only loyal companion, all for that PhD in forensic psychology. The one that was supposed to prove I wasn't just the spare kid, the afterthought daughter who'd clawed her way out of the shadow of my golden boy brother, Ethan. My parents had sworn up and down they'd be there. Front row. Cameras flashing like we were some Upper East Side royalty. Wouldn't miss it for the world. "Peyton," Dad had said over the phone, his voice all gravel and gin, the kind of promise that sounded ironclad until it wasn't. But they chose Ethan's pool bash instead. Some bullshit networking soiree at the Hamptons estate, where champagne flowed like the lies they'd fed me my whole life. I stood on that stage, mortarboard slipping like a crown of thorns, scanning the sea of proud families while the dean droned on about pioneering minds. No familiar faces. Just a text from Mom. "Traffic's a nightmare. Sweetie. Ethan's guests are VIPs. Rain check on the hug? Rain check. Like my goddamn doctorate was a lunch date at Le Bernardin. I forced a smile for the photos. But inside, something cracked, a fault line running straight through the good daughter facade I'd built brick by bullshit brick. That night, I drowned the hurt in cheap tequila at a dive bar off Amsterdam Avenue. The kind with sticky floors and jukebox tunes that screamed regret. Jake found me there, nursing my third shot, my cap and gown crumpled on the stool like discarded dreams. Jake Harlan, Harlan Enterprises heir. Wall Street wolf in bespoke wool. The guy who'd ghosted me after one too many casual hookups because, as he put it, "You're too intense, Peyton." Like, therapy intense. But there he was, sliding onto the stool next to me, all dimpled charm and cologne that cost more than my rent. "Heard about the big day," he said, clinking his glass to mine. "Parents bail?" Classic Harlan move. Wait. No. Classic my family move. He laughed. But it was the hollow kind, the one that echoed his own daddy issues. We talked for hours. Or maybe it was minutes. Tequila has a way of folding time. He confessed how his old man, Victor Harlan, had framed him for embezzling millions back in 18, just to teach him a lesson in loyalty. Or so the old bastard claimed. Jake had taken the fall, done 18 months in Rikers, emerged a ghost of himself. Family's everything, right? Until it's the knife in your back. By last call, we were stumbling into his penthouse on the Upper West Side, a glass palace overlooking the Hudson that screamed old money and newer sins. We didn't sleep much. Dawn crept in like a thief, painting his king-sized bed in shades of regret. And that's when the accident happened. Or what I thought was an accident. Jake had this antique amulet from some European flea market, a gaudy thing, silver and etched with symbols that looked like they'd been ripped from a Dan Brown novel. Family heirloom, he'd slurred, dangling it between us like a dare. Supposed to bind souls or some shit. Victor's idea of a joke. We laughed. Looped it around our necks in a mock ritual, lips brushing in the haze. Then the blackout hit, not the fun kind, but a void so absolute it swallowed sound, Light. Everything. I woke up gasping. But it wasn't my body. Broad shoulders. Calloused hands that smelled of cigars and power. Jake's body. Staring back from the mirror across the room. My reflection?
Gone.
In its place, a tangle of dark hair. Wide green eyes that weren't mine. A frame too slight for the weight of what I'd just lost.
No.
Wait, that was me. But wrong. Compact. Freckled. The body of some stranger who'd crashed into us?
No.
The news blared from the bedside TV, a hit-and-run on the West Side Highway. A delivery van swerving into oncoming traffic. One fatality. The victim? Peyton Ellis. 28. Fresh PhD grad. DOA at Mount Sinai. My body. My life. Erased in a smear of rubber and rain-slicked asphalt. But I was in Jake's skin, heart hammering like a war drum, and across from me in my body was Victor Harlan, the Silver Fox patriarch, blinking awake with eyes that weren't his. Confusion twisted his features, then sharpened into that predatory gleam I'd only seen in boardroom photos. "What the fuck?" he rasped, but in my voice soft, Midwestern lilt from summers in Ohio that I'd never shaken. He had sat up, clutching the sheets to a chest that had never known a push-up bra. I lunged, pinning him down, but he twisted free, my own lithe frame betraying me with its deceptive strength. "Peyton," he said, testing the name like a curse. And in that moment, as sirens wailed distant below, I knew this wasn't random. The amulet. The van Victor had orchestrated it all. Not for Jake, but for me. To bury a secret so deep it'd choke empires. The betrayal hit like a freight train. Turns out, I'd been collateral in Victor's Game of Thrones long before I ever met his son. Back in grad school, I'd interned at a psych firm that consulted for Harlan Enterprises, pro bono, thinking it'd pad my resume. What I uncovered, digging through employee files for a thesis on corporate trauma, was a skeleton in Victor's closet, a whistleblower cover-up from '09, where he'd pinned a multi-million-dollar fraud on a low-level accountant, a guy named Marcus Reed who'd OD'd in his cell, accidentally. But Marcus hadn't acted alone. He'd been the fall guy for Victor's pet project, siphoning funds to offshore accounts for political bribes. I'd flagged it anonymously, but Victor's PIs had traced it back. Rather than silence me outright, too messy for a senator's daughter-in-law hopeful, he'd groomed Jake to seduce me, dangle the amulet as bait, and stage the swap.
Why?
To make me him. To force me into his decaying empire, wearing his sins like a straitjacket, while he escaped in my untainted skin. Fresh start. New identity. No extradition treaties to some Caribbean bolt hole. Jake was the wild card. Passed out cold in the corner, his soul adrift or snuffed, I didn't know. But Victor, in my body, smirked as he dressed, slipping into my jeans like they were a disguise. "You'll thank me someday,
Girl."
This shell's got potential, no baggage. No bored feuds.
And you?
You'll keep the lights on here. Pay the debts I owe. He meant the SEC probes. The mob ties from his casino ventures in Atlantic City. The daughter he'd abandoned after her rape allegation against him surfaced in tabloids. Debts that would crush me. In his body. His name. I was the goat. Tethered to the altar. I let him leave. Controversial? Hell yes. The old Peyton would have screamed for campus security.
Det gäller 911 till Mitums bled.
But this new me, Jake's me, laced with his rage, watched him saunter out. my graduation gown draped over his arm like a trophy. "Tell Ethan I said congrats on the pool party," I called after him. Voice a baritone growl that turned my stomach. He paused, laughed my laugh, God, and vanished into the elevator. That was day 1. By day 3, I was Victor Harlan, signing off on mergers I didn't understand, fielding calls from mistresses who purred my name like a safe word. The mirror was my enemy, reflecting a stranger's jowls and receding hairline. But the power? It hummed like black coffee on an empty stomach. I hired a fixer, ex-FBI, shady as a back-alley deal, to track the amulet's origins. Turns out, it was no joke, a black market relic from Eastern European occult circles. Wired for neural disruption via some nanotech bullshit Victor had commissioned from a DARPA dropout. The van? Rented under a shell corp linked to Harlan Enterprises. The driver? Bribed and bolted to Mexico. Revenge brewed slow, like bourbon in a decanter. I started small, leaked emails to the Times, anonymous tips framing Victor's cronies for the '09 fraud. Watched from his corner office as stocks dipped, allies scattered like roaches. But the real play was personal. Ethan, my brother, the prince who'd always gotten the crown. Turns out, he'd known about the swap, hell. He'd greenlit the van hit, thinking it'd toughen me up after I confronted Mom about Dad's affairs. Family loyalty. American style. Blood thicker than the Hudson. But just as polluted. I infiltrated their world. Weekend warrior at the Hamptons manse. Posed as Victor, griping about that bitch daughter-in-law who'd stolen my son's fire. Mom, my former mom, nodded along, martini in hand, oblivious that her real daughter was the ghost in the machine. Peyton's always been dramatic. Victor. Like that time she accused you of, oh, never mind. Accused him of what? The pieces clicked. Dad's business trips to the firm where I'd interned. He'd been there, too, not as consultant, but as the ghostwriter for Victor's bribes, forging docs that implicated Marcus. I'd found them, buried in metadata, and Dad had buried me to protect his golden parachute. The tension coiled tighter. Nights, I'd prowl the penthouse, Jake's ghost whispering doubts. Was he dead? Trapped in limbo. I'd stare at the amulet, now locked in a safe, its etchings mocking me. Controversial decisions piled up. I seduced Victor's lawyer, a sharp-tongued brunette named Lena, not for info but to feel something human in this stolen husk. She saw through the act eventually, called me out over oysters at Per Se. You're not Victor. You're haunted. I confessed fragments, enough to bind her to me or break her. She stayed, became my shadow operative, hacking firewalls while I played the Titan. Climax built in October. Leaves bleeding red on Central Park paths like warning signs. Victor, in my skin, had gone full method actor, enrolled at NYU for creative writing, dyed my hair blonde, flirted with adjuncts like she was reclaiming youth. But cracks showed, my psych knowledge slipping through. Freudian slips in depositions he dodged by feigning amnesia. I cornered him at a gala for the Met, black tie suffocating as chandeliers dripped light like honeyed poison. Peyton, he hissed, champagne flute trembling. Or should I say, Dad. I leaned in, breath hot on my ear. You've been a busy girl. But secrets don't stay buried in this town. The confrontation spilled into the cloister's gardens, fog rolling off the river like cigarette smoke. I revealed the amulet's twin, procured from a Belarus contact, primed for reversal. He lunged, But Lena had the drop. Trank dart to the thigh. As he slumped, my face slack with defeat, I chained the relic around us both. The void returned, electric and intimate, souls ripping free like Velcro. When light pierced, I was me again, freckles, curves, the ache of a life interrupted. Victor, back in his sagging frame, eyes wild with the horror of return. But the twist? As sirens converged, Lena's anonymous tip to NYPD. Victor wheezed a laugh. You think you won. Peyton? That fraud in '09? Marcus didn't OD. I made him jump. Sure. But the bribes? Your father penned them. To fund Ethan's trust. The one that bought his way into Wharton. You're the goat. Girl, gilding the family cage.
Dad.
My rock. My betrayer. The accident reports I dismissed, falsified by his firm. The swap, his idea, whispered to Victor over scotch at the links. Tough love, he'd called it later. In cuffs, as feds drag him from the Hamptons pool house. Ending? Bittersweet as a Manhattan in winter. Victor rots in Otisville. Federal time for fraud and conspiracy. Dad? Facing charges that could bury him deeper than his lies. Ethan? Disinherited. Scrambling in Queens like I once did.
Me?
I reclaimed my name, but the doctorate's dust now, lecturing adjunct at CUNY, writing a memoir no one will touch. Jake, his body, post-swap, held a faint echo. We found his soul intact. Therapy and time stitching him back. We married last spring. Quiet ceremony in Prospect Park.
No parents invited.
Was it justice? Or just another swap? Innocence for vengeance? Readers will argue till the Hudson freezes.
Me?
I sleep sounder now. But the mirror still lies sometimes. Waking up as Victor Harlan wasn't just disorienting, it was a full-body violation. Like slipping into a suit tailored for a monster. His penthouse, my temporary kingdom, sprawled across 2 floors of the Beresford, with views that mocked the city's ants below. I paced the marble floors in his monogrammed robe, the fabric chafing against skin that felt foreign, every wrinkle a reminder of years I hadn't lived. The first call came at 7 a.m. Sharp, Reginald, Victor's pitbull CFO, barking about quarterly projections. Boss. The Alibaba deal's teetering, those Chinese pricks are lowballing again. I mumbled something about counter with tariffs, praying it sounded alpha, enough to buy time. By noon, I was in a boardroom at Harlan Tower, midtown monolith of glass and greed, fielding questions from suits who eyed me like I'd grown a second head. Which, in a way, I had. Survival meant method acting on steroids. I binge-watched Victor's old CNBC clips, mimicked his gravelly drawl, the way he'd steeple his fingers like a Bond villain plotting doomsday. But beneath it, Peyton simmered, the girl who'd profiled serial CEOs for her dissertation, spotting tells like a hawk. Victor's board was a nest of vipers, Reginald with his coke-fueled rants, Sophia the HR shark who'd buried 3 harassment suits, and then there was Theo, the silent enforcer who'd handled the '09 cleanup. I probed gently, dropping bait over power lunches at Delmonico's. Remember Marcus? Good man. Wrong place. Theo's fork paused mid-steak, eyes narrowing. Ancient history.
Beak.
Why dredge it? Because it was my history now. Chained to this husk. Nights blurred into reconnaissance. Lena entered stage, left on a Thursday. Rain lashing the windows as I nursed a Macallan in a dark booth at the Polo Bar. She'd been Victor's counsel for a decade, Ivy League polish over street-smart grit. The kind of lawyer who could acquit a saint of jaywalking. I hired her under pretense of estate planning, but over files of shell companies. The mask slipped. "You're not yourself," she said, tapping a Mont Blanc on the mahogany. "The real Victor would have fucked me by now." Not quoted Foucault. I froze, then laughed, a rusty bark that echoed Jake's ghost. Confession tumbled out, the swap, the amulet, Victor's escape artistry. She didn't bolt. Instead, her eyes lit with that thrill junkies chase, the edge where law bends. If it's true, we're talking identity theft on a metaphysical level. Unprosecutable. But oh, the civil suits.
By dawn.
We were allies. Her laptop spidering through Victor's servers, unearthing digital graves. The betrayal deepened with every bite. Dad's fingerprints were everywhere, not just the bribes, but the cover. Emails from 2010. Victor. The girl sniffing too close. Handle it. Or I pull funding from Ethan's campaign slush. Campaign? Ethan. My smug-ass brother. Gunning for city council at 25. Daddy's war chest to slingshot. I'd always chalked his silver spoon to luck. Turns out, it was laundered lies. Mom? Complicit in the quiet way WASP wives are. Alibis over bridge games. Headaches that kept her from family dinners when questions got too pointed. The pool bash snub? Salt in the wound. But now I saw it as strategy. Keep Peyton placated, distracted. While the swap net closed. I pushed back. Controversial as hell. First move, sabotage Ethan's networking gig. As Victor, I invited his VIPs to a rivalry-up party off Montauk, caviar and coke. Whispers of insider trades that'd make the SEC salivate. Ethan arrived late. Face thunderous. Cornering me in the galley. Dad. What the fuck? These are my connects. I clapped his shoulder, feeling the familial flinch. Tough love. Son. Like you gave your sister. His eyes widened bingo. He knew. Peyton's fine. Tough broad. But the stutter betrayed him. Later, Lena pulled his text, van set. She'll thank us.
Us.
The family syndicate. Tension ratcheted with Victor's first slip-up. He'd holed up in my old Astoria sublet ironic. Trading penthouse for peeling wallpaper, but my psych habits leaked. He started journaling, scribbling Freudian rants in my hand about ego, dissolution. A neighbor. Nosy Mrs. Kowalski from downstairs. Called the cops after hearing delusional muttering. NYPD rolled up. But he talked his way out, flashing my student ID like a get-out-of-jail-free. Close call. I countered by doxing his alias. Piper Ellis, the nom de plume he'd adopted for MFA classes, churning out thinly veiled confessionals about corporate patricide. Lit mags ate it up. But so did bloggers. Is Piper the new Gillian Flynn? I amplified, seeding forums with hints of plagiarism from Victor's memoirs. His inbox flooded. He ghosted 2 profs. Paranoia setting in. Meanwhile, Jake's absence gnawed. His body moved like a puppet on my strings, taller, broader, but hollow. I'd catch glimpses in reflective surfaces, his easy grin flashing unbidden. Or a phantom itch where his tattoo should have been. A Celtic knot on the ribs from his frat days. Therapy? I tried a discreet shrink on Park Avenue. But body dysmorphia post-trauma didn't cover soul theft. Lena suggested regression hypnosis. Under the trance, Jake surfaced, fragmented. Furious. He planned it. The amulet. For me, too. Victor had dangled it years ago. Post-strikers. To reclaim your edge. Jake refused. I became the proxy. Decisions got darker. I greenlit a Harlan deal that'd displace 200 families in the Bronx. Controversial payoff to buy silence from a councilman sniffing too close to the fraud. Guilt twisted like barbed wire. But it flushed Theo out. He cornered me in the tower's garage. Beretta glinting under fluorescence. You're playing with fire.
Beak.
Reed's ghosts don't rest. I disarmed him, Jake's old boxing reflexes kicking in, and extracted a confession over zip-tied wrists. Theo'd driven the van. But on Dad's orders. Ellis said it'd look like road rage. Clean. I let him go, with a gag order and a one-way ticket to Vegas. Mercy or manipulation? The line blurred in Victor's blood. By November, the web tightened. Victor, sensing the noose, reached out, a burner call to the penthouse. Peyton, we can reverse it. Meet at the cloisters. Midnight. Come alone. His voice, mine, cracked on the plea. I went. Lena in the shadows, with the trank. Fog cloaked the medieval arches. Hudson murmuring like a conspirator. He waited by the unicorn tapestries. My frame swallowed in an oversized coat. You don't understand, he said. Amulet glinting. The empire's crumbling without me.
Lies.
Lena's hacks showed transfers to Cayman accounts, his bolt hole fund. The fight was brutal. Intimate. He clawed at me, my own nails raking Jake's arms, screaming, You're nothing without this. I pinned him, relic chaining us. The surge ripping through like lightning in veins. Reversal hit. Souls slamming home. I gasped. Back and flesh that fit like a glove, breasts rising with breath. Legs steady under me. Victor groaned, his face sagging anew, the weight of years crashing down. But as cuffs clicked, Lena's 911 in motion, he spat the poison. Your dad. He wrote the checks. Peyton. For Ethan. For you, that internship? His gift. To keep you close.
Flashback, Dad's surprise referral.
The firm he'd partnered with Victor on. I'd been groomed from the start. Innocent pawn in their chess. The twist inverted everything. My revenge not against a lone wolf, but a pack I'd birthed from. Reclaiming my body felt like emerging from underwater, lungs burning, world tilting back to true. But victory's aftertaste was ash. Victor slumped against the cloister's stone, his empire reduced to a wheezing husk. While I stood there in yoga pants and a hoodie, my emergency kit from Lena, feeling exposed. Alive.
Me.
Sirens wailed closer. Blues flashing through the fog like accusatory strobes. You did it, Lena murmured, holstering the trank gun. Her lawyer facade cracking into something raw.
Relieved.
Did I? The amulet lay shattered at our feet, shards catching moonlight like broken promises. Victor's eyes, dull now with repossession, flicked to me. Call off the dogs. Peyton. We can spin this amnesia. Drugs. Whatever. I knelt, close enough to smell the Chanel no. 5 clinging to my former skin, his now. Forever. Spin? Like you spun Marcus into a suicide? Or me into roadkill? His laugh was a cough. Wet and final. Family's a business.
Girl.
Debts get paid.
Debts.
The word hooked deep, reeling in the final gut punch. As Fed swarmed, tipped by Lena's prep dossier on the fraud, Victor's parting shot landed. Dad's ledgers. Hidden in a safety deposit box at Chase Manhattan. detailing every kickback. Your old man's the architect. Check the footnotes. Ethan's tuition wired from slush. I froze. The revelation of vertigo spin. All this time, I'd painted Victor the devil. Turns out, he was the middleman. Interrogation rooms became my new normal. A fluorescent purgatory in one police plaza. NYPD grilled me as Piper Ellis, suspecting identity fraud. But Lena lawyered up fierce, pro bono for the greater good. My client's a victim of elder abuse. Psychological coercion, she argued. Flashing psych evals I'd faked with real symptoms. They bought it. Mostly, Victor cracked first, trading testimony for a plea. But Dad, he lawyered up too. From a holding cell in White Plains, where feds had nabbed him mid-golf swing at Winged Foot. It's all lies. Pumpkin, he wheezed over a monitored line. Victor's framing me to save his ass. Pumpkin. The pet name curdled. Once a comfort. Now a con. The trial was a circus. Splashed across the post like a Scorsese script. Harlan Air swap. Soul steal or senile scam. Tabloids devoured the occult angle. Amulet photos pixelated for sensationalism, while 60 Minutes did a somber segment on corporate cannibalism. I testified in a pantsuit that itched like guilt, recounting the swap in clinical terms. Neural overload. Dissociative episode. No mention of souls. That'd land me in Bellevue. Victor took the stand, haggard in orange jumpsuit, spinning a tale of experimental therapy gone wrong, DARPA ties exaggerated for sympathy. Jurors ate it up. The old money charm undimmed. But the ledgers? Lena's forensic accounting unearthed them. Dad's scrawl on every page. Initials Ari for Reed. Ellis, Marcus's framed job bankrolled by family funds. Ethan crumbled spectacularly. Subpoenaed as a hostile witness. He arrived at Foley Square in a rumpled Brooks Brothers. Eyes bloodshot from whatever he'd drowned the night before. I didn't know about the van, he lied. Sweat beading under the lights. Cross-exam. Then explain this text to your father. June 20th. Peyton's en route. Make it quick. Mic drop. He folded, blubbering about protecting the legacy, how Dad had pitched the swap as tough love to reset me after I meddled in the internship files. Meddled. I'd save his ass from IRS audits. Unwittingly. The courtroom gasped, Mom. In the gallery, fainted dead away. Her pearls clattering like dominoes. Controversy peaked with my decisions. Post-trial, with Victor plea bargained to 15 in Otisville and Dad facing 25 for racketeering. I could have walked new life. New city. Maybe adjuncting in Seattle with Jake. But vengeance isn't a light switch. I sued the Harlan estate civilly. Not for cash but closure, demanding dissolution of the trust that had funded Ethan's rise. Blood money, I called it in depositions. Voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Pundits howled, ungrateful daughter destroys dynasty, but survivors cheered on Reddit threads, Peyton Ellis, the anti-heiress. Ethan countered with a smear campaign. Anonymous leaks painting me as unstable, the swap a delusional breakdown. He even doxed my CUNY syllabus, twisting lecture notes on trauma into manifestos. The real tension? Internal. Jake and I, piecing us back. His body had healed, scars faded, but the disconnect lingered. We'd lie in our New Brooklyn brownstone, off Bedford, where brownstones whispered of fresh starts. Did I feel you in there, he'd ask, tracing my ribs where the amulet had burned. I nodded, confessing the seduction with Lena, not physical, but the emotional tether. The nights we'd plotted over takeout pho. Her laugh cutting the dark. It kept me sane, I admitted.
He forgave.
Or tried. Therapy unpacked the jealousy. The fear-eyed preferred Victor's power skin. Sex was tentative at first, rediscovering maps in familiar terrain. But it built fierce. Reclaiming. American as a road trip fuck in a motel off I-95. Mom's plea came via courier, a cream envelope. Scented with her Chanel. Begging a Hamptons sit-down. For closure. Darling. I went. Controversial as flipping off the judge. The estate loomed. Gatsby gone grim with foreclosure notices taped to French doors. She waited on the veranda. Scone crumbling in her lap. Eyes puffy from what I assumed were real tears. I didn't know the depth, she whispered, offering tea laced with apology. Bullshit. Lena's digs showed wire transfers to her charity, Victor's hush money for the abandoned daughter. The rape claim from 95. You chose silence, I said, voice my own again, sharp as shattered crystal. She reached for my hand. I pulled back. And you chose the pool party over my soul. Ethan crashed the reconciliation. Drunk and desperate. Pounding the door like a repo man. Sis, Peyton, we can fix this. Sell the story. Netflix deal.
Million.
I laughed, bitter as dregs. Fix? Like, you fix me under those tires? He sobbed then, collapsing into wicker. Confessing the texts were just talk, Dad's pressure cooker boiling over. Pity flickered. He was the spoiled kid. After all, raised on silver lies. But mercy has limits. I left him there, brother to ghosts, driving my beat-up Civic back to Brooklyn as gulls screamed overhead. Twist's shadow loomed in the appeals. Dad's lawyers unearthed a bombshell, my internship app, forged by Mom to help me network, planting me in the viper pit. Unwitting architect of my fall. Was it malice or maternal meddling?
Forum exploded Elise matriarche, mastermind hors morne?
I debated testifying against her, but dropped it. Some debts aren't worth collecting. By Christmas, the empire's husk smoldered. Harlan Tower rebranded under Lena's firm. Proceeds to victim funds. Marcus Reed's widow got the penthouse. Irony's bitter cherry. Jake proposed over dim sum in Flushing. Ring from a pond Harlan watch. To swaps we survive.
I said yes.
But sleep evaded. Dreams replaying the void. Victor's smirk in my mirror. Vengeance sated. But the yum? It lingers. A stain on the soul. Was I hero or heel? Dismantling dynasty for a personal purgatory? America loves its antiheroes. I'll let the podcast decide. The wedding was my middle finger to fate, small, defiant, under a canopy of cherry blossoms in Prospect Park that May, petals drifting like confetti from a kinder god. Jake in linen, me in thrift store lace. 50 guests max, Lena as maid of honor. Toasting with Prosecco and barbs about perjury-proof vows. No family aisle walking. Ethan's invite went unanswered. Mom's RSVP a polite decline laced with healing time. The officiant, a queer Unitarian with tattoos peeking from his collar, bound us with words borrowed from Whitman. I am he that walks with a tender and growing night. Tender. Growing. After the swap, it felt like prophecy, our love, scarred but sprouting. Honeymoon was road tripsy Americana, Route 66 echoes from Chicago to Santa Fe. Motels with neon buzz and beds that creaked stories. We talked souls out, Jake admitting the Rikers rage that mirrored my vengeance. How Victor's lesson had hollowed him worse than bars. I envied you. In there, he confessed over green chili at a Taos diner.
Pure.
Unbroken. Unbroken? I snorted, spilling adobo sauce. The swap had forged me in hellfire. Peyton 2.0. Sharper edges. Trust a luxury good. But in those desert nights, star-pricked skies vast as regret, we mended. Sex evolved from reclamation to ritual, bodies sinking like amulet echoes, his hands on my hips tracing the freckles he'd memorized secondhand. Back in Brooklyn, reality reasserted, adjunct life at CUNY, lecturing on trauma and identity in post-industrial America to bleary-eyed undergrads who live-tweeted my rants. Ellis drops truth bombs, one posted, viral enough for podcast offers. I demurred. The memoir simmered on my laptop. 200 pages of unfiltered venom, swapped, a daughter's reckoning with corporate Cain. Publishers circled like sharks. Knopf dangled six figures. But I held for creative control. No whitewashing the incest of it all, I told agents. Meaning the family fraud. The way Dad's love had bankrolled sins. Controversy stalked like paparazzi. Ethan's tell-all dropped in July. Brother betrayed. The Harlan curse, ghost-ridden drivel painting him the victim. Me the vengeful harpy, who'd stolen Dad's thunder. Excerpts leaked. Peyton always resented the attention. The swap was her fantasy. Her way to play patriarch. Twitter erupted, Peyton pillory trending. Inkel's demanding death threats. Feminists rallying with soul sisters unite. Lena sued for defamation. Discovery unearthed his therapy notes. Admissions of sister envy, twisted into sabotage. He settled out of court. Gagged and broke. Last seen bartending at a Murray Hill dive. Slinging Manhattans to finance bros who once kissed his ring. Mom's redemption arc was pure soap, Lifetime movie fodder. She surfaced at my office hours unannounced. Botox fresh but eyes haunted. Bearing a manila folder. Dad's confessionals. Prison scribbled apologies. Read it. Then burn me, she said. Voice a whisper over the radiator's hiss. I did. Later. Alone with Jake's bourbon. Pages of paternal pathos. I built walls to protect you. Pumpkin. But bricks crush. Protection? He'd bricked me under tires. Yet lines blurred. His own father. A steel mill tyrant in Gary, Indiana, who'd beaten ambition into him like rebar. A cycle of abuse. Psych 101. Controversial choice. I visited him at Otisville. Plexiglass between us. His orange jumpsuit clownish on the frame I'd once hugged. Forgive, he rasped. Receiver slick with desperation.
No.
But understanding? A sliver. You made me the monster, I said. Now live with yours. Victor's decay was swifter. Pancreatic whisper diagnosed post-plea. Chemo a courtesy for white-collar crooks. He wrote once. Violina, the body betrays. Peyton. As did I. Use the empire's ashes wisely. I did. Funneled residuals to Reed's Foundation. Scholarships for whistleblower kids. His death hit the obits. Tycoon Victor Harlan. 68. Empire builder and fall guy. Eulogies glossed the fraud. I skipped the funeral, but sent lilies white. For false purity. Tension peaked in fall. When the sequel scandal broke. A Harlan VP, cornered by SEC hounds, flipped on a dormant file. Dad's 95 cover-up. The rape allegation not from a mistress, but mom's sister. Aunt Lydia. Institutionalized after. Suicide. Attempt hushed with Victor's check. Mom had known. Enabled. Her charity, a laundering front for guilt. I confronted her at the Hamptons estate. Now foreclosed ghost. Waves crashing like indictments. Why? I demanded. Folder pages fluttering in the gale. She crumpled. Mascara rivers. To keep the family whole. Your father. He was broken first. Broken. The word echoed Jake's Riker scars.
My swap void.
I walked away, but not before wiring her cut of the memoir advance, enough for a quiet Vermont cabin. Exile with dignity. Decisions haunted. Did I humanize too much? Forums debated. Peyton, avenger or enabler? As my book climbed charts. Oprah Book Club whispers turning to roars. Jake thrived, parlaying his redemption into a TED Talk on corporate soul loss, gigs at Davos knockoffs. We fought, of course, over my late nights polishing chapters. His envy of the spotlight I'd claimed. You're the star now, he'd snap, then pull me close. Apologies in his kiss. The yum deepened in winter. Snow blanketing Brooklyn like amnesia. Dreams replayed the cloister surge. Victor's soul brushing mine, not evil, but empty. A void chasing validation. Was the swap karmic? Dad's genes. Mom's silence. Ethan's pettiness. All mirrors of my own buried rage. Therapy unpacked it. Vengeance as addiction. The shrink drawled. Billing hourly. I quit after 3 sessions, some shadows you dance with. Climax echoed in a CUNY panel on ethics in the age of AI. Ironic. Given the amulet's tech twist. A heckler, Ethan's proxy, shouted. You profited from pain, mic in hand. I fired back. Pain profited from me first. This, gesturing the room. Diverse faces hungry for truth. This is restitution. Applause thundered. Later, beers with students. One confessed her own family fraud. Cycle unbroken, but named. Twists afterglow. The reversal wasn't just souls, but legacies. My book deal funded a nonprofit, Ellis Initiative. Forensic Psych for Abuse Survivors. Jake co-chairs. His Wall Street savvy greasing grants. Mom visits quarterly. Tentative teas in coffee shops. Her stories filling blanks, without absolution.
Ethan?
Sober now. Anonymous AA sponsor in Queens. Texting birthday memes I ignore, but don't block. America's rhythm pulses on, tense. Debatable. Unyielding. I wake to Jake's snore. Mirror showing Peyton, wiser. Wearier.
Whole.
Vengeance? A chapter closed. The sequel writes itself. A year post-wedding. The Ellis Initiative hit stride. Our first cohort. 10 survivors in a Soho loft turned safe space. Dissecting traumas with tools I'd forged in hell. Identity isn't fixed, I lectured. Whiteboards scrawled with Freud and Foucault. It's a negotiation. They nodded. Eyes fierce. Latina coders silenced by tech bros. Black moms gaslit by welfare traps. Trans kids orphaned by family values zealots. Jake handled the biz end, pitching donors at galas where old Harlan ghosts lurked, toasting Phoenix funds with ironic grins. Lena, board chair. Her firm pro bono for the lot. We'd built something from ashes, not empire, but ecosystem. Roots digging deep in concrete cracks. But yum clings like humidity. Dad's appeal dragged into spring. A spectacle in Manhattan federal court where lawyers dueled like fencers on meth. His defense, diminished capacity, executive stress syndrome, coined by a shrink for hire. I testified rebuttal. Voice steady. Stress doesn't forge fraud. Character does. Jurors, blue-collar mix from the outer boroughs, saw through the spin. convicting on all counts. Sentencing, 22 years. No parole. He collapsed in the dock, keening like a gutted fish. Mom watched via Zoom from Vermont, her feed freezing on a sob. Later, she mailed a locket, Aunt Lydia's, engraved wholehearted, with a note, "She be proud. As am I."
Proud.
The word sat uneasy, but I wore it to bed. Cool metal against skin. A talisman against doubt. Ethan's redemption was rockier. A slow-burn biopic in real time. He surfaced at an initiative open house, clean-shaven and contrite, volunteering as facilitator in training. Skeptics whispered, "Grift alert," but his sessions rang true, sharing the pool party snub from his view. Entitlement's blindfold, how Dad's pedestal had crushed his spine. We talked. Finally. Over bad coffee in the loft's kitchenette. "I hated you for shining without trying," he admitted, stirring sugar like regret. Thought the swapped. Equalize. Equalize. The arrogance chilled. But so did the vulnerability, brother as broken toy. Not villain. Controversial olive branch. I sponsored his AA chip. 6 months sober. Not forgiveness. But fraternity. Fragile as rice paper. Victor's legacy lingered spectral. Post-mortem leaks, courtesy of a vengeful ex-mistress, revealed the rape claims full rot. Lydia. Institutionalized at Silver Hill. Treated with electroshock funded by Mom's dowry. The initiative pivoted. Adding a legal arm, Lena sued the estate's remnants. Winning reparations for Lydia's heirs, nieces I'd never met. Now, aunts in Jersey. Closure? Partial. Like a puzzle with edges singed. Personal tensions simmered domestic. Jake and I, in the brownstone's creaky warmth, navigated the swap's seismic aftershocks. His nightmares, Riker's echoes, merged with amulet voids. Mine mirror doppelgangers, Victor's growl and my laugh. We'd fight over trivia, whose turn to load the dishwasher, but it masked deeper, my memoir's shadow. How fame's glare amplified his +1 status. "You're the Ellis now," he'd snap, retreating to the basement gym. Therapy reloaded, couple sessions with a Park Slope sage who prescribed soul-mapping exercises. Tracing tattoos and scars like topographers. It worked. Incrementally, date nights at Coney Island. Nathan's dogs under boardwalk lights. Laughing till ribs ached. The final twist inverted soft. A pregnancy test. 2 pink lines in our bathroom's harsh glow. Unplanned. Uncharted. The Avenger. Nurturing life amid ruins. Jake wept. Joylaced terror. We named her preliminary, Reed. For Marcus. Strength in remembrance. Ultrasound showed a fighter. Kicking like she knew the score. Mom knitted booties. Ethan pledged uncle duties. No silver spoons. Promise. Even Dad. From Otisville. Sent a letter. Grandkid? Tell her Gramps builds bridges, not walls. Hallucination or hope? I filed it with the locket. Climax crested at the initiative's gala, rooftop at the Standard. Skyline twinkling like absolution. I keynote. Belly just showing under silk. Voice carrying over clinks. Vengeance isn't the end, it's the forge. We swapped chains for choices. Applause swelled. Jake's hand on my back. Steady anchor. But mid-toast. A ghost. Theo. Victor's old enforcer. Risen from Vegas exile. Mic in hand as reformed consultant. Peyton's right, but forgiveness? That's the real power move. Murmurs rippled. He donated anonymously. Sessions under our roof healing his van driver guilt. Handshake? Hell no. But nod acknowledgement. The swap's ultimate reversal. Enemies to echoes. Ending debates eternal. Happy? In the American dream sense, bootstraps to brownstone. Villains vanquished. Baby on board. Tragic? Shadows persist. The what-ifs. The souls we'd glimpsed in others. The empire's echo in our veins. Readers will brawl in comments. Peyton, Saint or Selkie, but I choose the tension. The yum that fuels. Waking to Jake's breath. Reads flutters. Brooklyn's hum, this is the rhythm. Controversial cadence of a life reclaimed. We drive to Ohio summers now. Grandma's farm where my lilt was born. Teaching Reed dandelion crowns and dirt truths. Family's messy, I'll say. But yours? Built on fire. And in that, the hook closes, not shock, but spark, a legacy unchained. Burning bright.